So our first output example on our core report G1050 core giving records, we're looking at output which I would call a batch transaction detail report. So for a given time period, I can see how much money was given. I can see all of my different output columns that I selected to view. And then I have a subtotal line here. So all the greens here is a subtotal line. And I'm subtotaling by batch and then show you all the transactions that occurred for each batch. And so I see my transaction ID, type, name, fund, source, reference, amount, all the way across, including memo. So this first group has no batch at all. All of these transactions don't even belong to a batch, and they total $9,554.84. Everything on the sheet is $21,000. Coming on down, I have my next batch, which has one transaction, another batch, which has several more, another batch, another batch, another batch. You get the picture how it works. So in order to get this kind of output from the report, let's take a look at that. It looks like this. I chose my receive date. I put a range in there, which we saw in the output. I did not choose specific batches, although I could have. And then coming on down, I subtotal by batch. I did not page break. I only had one sheet on there. And then I subtotal by every change in a batch. And then for every row, I said, show me the transaction ID. And then I said, show me whether it's check, cash, or credit card. Show me the fund. Show me the memo, the originating source, the receive date, and the reference field. All of those we saw in the output. All these columns are here. So by subtotaling on change of batch, and I selected all those output fields. That was for the giving fields. Then we come back and I said, now for the contributor, I want to see the contributor name. I want to see whether it's a household, individual, organization, and that's it for contributor. So if I look at that, then I see here's my contributor name and my contributor type. That came in that section. Coming on down, then I had summary fields, and I chose no summarization whatsoever, no totals of any kind, just give me amounts for the selections that I've made. And I didn't do any other filtering, and that's all I did. That's example number one. For our second example, we see here a summarization by fund and subfund. So for my same date range, I chose show me just the fund and the subfund plus the general ledger and the fund code for anything given in that time period. And that's what it did. And so it rolled up all the contributions up to every unique combination of fund code, fund, subfund, and general ledger, and then gave me the total amount. I also asked for summarization metrics on the number of transactions and the average dollar per each transaction in that line. So we see that on each individual line here. So for every unique combination we see, we have our metrics. And then at the top, we still have that same fund total we were interested in, but we also have our metrics total for the whole line. So the T represents the number of transactions, and then the dollars per each of those transactions, the average dollar gift. So if we look at the filters, we can see here I have my same date range. I came on down. I had no sheet break, no subgrouping, and I just said give me the fund, fund code, general ledger, and subfund. I did no contributor fields whatsoever. So as a result then, for every unique combination of these four values, and it gave me one line, and then my summary I said number of transactions and number of dollars per transaction. See how that works? So then back over here, and they get you this result. If I were to choose more fields, then it would break out into more lines. But again, I had no subtotals, no page breaking, and so therefore I have a simple funds, subfund totaling. So in this third example, I want to be able to see who gave money on a specific receive date. So what I did is subtotal by receive date for every unique occurrence in my date range. So then I chose to see the unique contributors for every receive date in the report. So for the first receive date, I see that Mark and Deborah DeMoss gave, actually something was reversed, and $152. The next date, I have the next giver. The next date, I have two more. And coming on down, you can see for every unique date I have in my example here, I have how many contributors. I showed their transaction ID. I showed their marital status, their address, the amount, and then I actually added up how many contributors and how many transactions were for each line. That was really more for the totals at the top here, so I can see how many contributors and how many transactions make up the total for the sheet, and each for each subsection we see here. So on 324, I had $725 given by two contributors in the amount of 7 transactions, and I have this detail for each one. So let's take a look at the filters on that. So here we have the same date range, no batches. I subgrouped on receive date for every unique one. I chose transactions by ID, which made every transaction appear on the report. It didn't roll up at all. because every transaction ID is unique for each one. Coming on down, that was it for that. And then I said, show me contributor, status, marital status, primary address, age, and my number of contributors and transactions. So for my next example, I'm showing all my batches rolled up by fund. So I'm displaying one row per batch and then organizing by fund. So I subtotal by change in fund, one subtotal for each unique fund, and then I showed a line for each batch, including the batch date, batch name, how much was given in the batch, which is in the total, and then I showed the number of giving units, or how many families and organizations they gave, and how many transactions made up each line. So I can see each of my batch names here, the dates, the amounts, and so forth. Then for the whole fund, which comprised that batch, how many total giving units, how many total transactions, and total amount. So 44 giving units and 135 transactions for everything in this date range for all of these funds and batches. If I can scroll down here, I can see every unique fund all the way down. So this is a great fund batch type selection. Looking at the filters on this one, to get that, I subtotaled on every change in fund. I displayed in the giving fields just the date and the name, and that's it. I showed no contributor fields, and then for my summary fields, I chose giving units and transactions. And then I sorted by received date so that all the received dates would come at the top. In this next example, I wanted to be able to do a page break by every activity which collected transactions. So when you're entering contributions in Fellowship 1, you can associate a Fellowship 1 activity, service time, date and time to each gift. And then this option will allow you to basically break them out by sheet on each change in the activity. So for my first sheet here, I'm showing all the gifts that are associated with no activity. And then for each one of those, I wanted to see the transaction, the giving unit name, the amount, the stated value, number of givings, dollar per giving unit, transactions, average dollars per transaction. So I have 33 giving units and an average of $1,089 for each one, 84 transactions, a total of $35,000 for this activity given in the time period. Then I subtotal by contribution type, ACH, cash, credit card, that sort of thing. And then I showed you every transaction organized by type of contribution. Page broken by activity. So then I look at my next sheet, I see, oh, here's this worship service at this certain date and time, cash, check, and all the transactions that go with each one. Again, the whole statistics for each one of those. Next sheet, activity, service time, and so forth, all the way down. So if we look at the filters to get to that, what we did is come in here and said, all right, first I want a sheet break on activity changes, subtotal by check, cash, and credit card. I want to see transaction ID, and that's it. And I want to see giving unit name, that's it. And I further said, show me number of giving units, number of transaction, and number of giving dollars per giving unit, and average dollars per transaction, and that produced that output. In this next example, I'm just showing giving by age of the contributor. So based on the age of the individual given or the age of the head in the family, show me what that age is, how much money was given by all the contributors that shared that same age, how many families are affected, they're in this row, and then what is the average dollars given per each family. And so by doing this, you can kind of do some age analysis. And what I've done is taken the output and sort it by average dollars per giving unit is what I did. So I did that in Excel. So my top giver units actually are age 37. My next top givers is 63 with 3 families, and then a 41, 16 families, and then a 42, and I can see how the average age or average dollars per giving unit starts dropping over time. So you could actually sort this in age order, sort it by average dollars per giving unit order. It can be very interesting. But to get this output, all I did was choose in the output. I just chose no giving fields. I didn't do page break, no subtotal. All I did was pick age. And that's it. And so it rolled it up for every unique age out there. Bam, it gave me a line for each one. And then I chose in my metrics or my summaries number of giving units and number of dollars per giving unit. Very powerful. And this next example is very similar. I just wanted to see giving by status. And so I chose the status in the output, and that's all I chose. I see, okay, here's all the various statuses of the givers in my database. How much money was given by all the people that are members, all the people that are contributor onlys, all the organizations, all the child members, and so forth. How many families are in each one of these lines for the time frame that we're looking at here, and what's the average dollars per family given by each of those statuses. And we can see that the organizations were actually the biggest givers, and then the next were the members, and then finally were the attendees. And so in the filters, all I did was choose no page break, no subgroups, no giving fields. I just chose status in the output right here, and then I said show me number of giving units or families and average dollar per giving unit, and that's how I got that output. Very cool. Here's another example of the same technique where I'm choosing just to show substatus. I had a church say, hey, I need to know how many giving units we have or how many families are giving for each of our campuses. Well, if you're using substatus to denote the campus that family belongs to, then I just choose substatus, and that's it. And it will roll up all the gifts by the substatus of all the givers, show you how much money was there, and then I said again, number of giving units and average dollars per giving unit. So I see I can have 4 Dallas givers, 2 Fort Worth givers, and 1 Atlanta giver. And I'm sure yours is a lot higher. But then we have the dollars per giving unit. Very powerful, accomplish the same capabilities we were doing before. And the filters are very similar again. Come down here, no sheet break, no subtotaling, no giving fields. All I chose was substatus. And then I get number of families by campus. Very powerful. Well, that's the highlights. Try out all the filters to experience the full power of this report. And as always, I welcome your ideas posted to this blog that would increase the value of this report to your team. My mission is to serve you better via these core reports because we've heard you, and I'm still listening.